Hi friends, it's Heather. Welcome back to my channel, Brilliant Blue Reviews. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing my latest book that I just finished reading for you, and that is She Really Going Out With Him by Sophie Cousens. This is the second book by Sophie Cousens that I have read, and I am not ashamed to admit that yes, I have been crying. And so you know what that means. This is an automatic 5 out of 5 stars. I remember feeling almost the same way when I read the other book by Sophie Cousens that I read, which was a few years ago, but it was I Just Haven't Met You Yet, or Just Haven't Met You Yet. I would like to point out that I love the clever little use of what are also song titles, popular song titles, as titles for her books. That's not what it is. That's not why she calls it that, but I just think that's kind of cute. Sophie Cousens is a British author. Okay, I'm weird about British books. This is Sophie. Because I went to university in London and because I was living and studying in London at a key time in my life, and also had a lot of stuff going on emotionally at the time, which, without saying too much, has kind of resurfaced for me very recently, like a week ago. I really connected with this book in a lot of ways. This was very, very relatable to me and stirred up a lot of things inside. So it might have had a bigger impact on me than it will for other people who read it. But back to the British thing. Because I lived and studied in London, been back several times since then, I love reading British books set in the UK. I also lived in Ireland when I was in high school, so I also love Irish books that are set in Ireland. But I don't know if anybody else does this. Maybe I only did do this because I lived there, but I read it in my mind in a British accent, okay? So, or an Irish accent if it's Irish. And there were a couple times in this book when I went to start reading at night in bed, I was, caught up in the things that were going on that day or whatever, and I was reading it in my typical American accent in my mind, and then I might come across a word or a phrase that only Brits would use, and I would, oh, that's right, this is in Bath. And so then I would correct myself in my mind and say, oh, I have to be reading this in a British accent. And then I'm like, oh, yes, it's so much better this way. It's so much better when it's British, and I feel more at home now that it's like that. It's set in Bath, England. I have been to Bath. When I was studying in London, I went with 3-4 friends. I remember I stayed in a B&B with my friends, and one of them was a guy, and everybody was like arguing because there were only 2 rooms, I think, 2 or 3 rooms in the B&B that we could have, and everybody was freaking out about who was going to share a bed with the guy. And I'm like, I'll do it, I don't care. So that was kind of funny. But we spent a long weekend in Bath on one of our weekends away from school and had a fabulous time. And Bath is a beautiful city. I had a great time there, and I would love to go back to Bath. It was wonderful. So this book is set in Bath, England, and the main character, Anna Appleby, is a divorced single mom. She has 2 kids. Jess is 12 and Ethan is 7. She's divorced from her ex-husband, Dan. They met in university. And he has a new partner, girlfriend, Sylvie. So that's the thing. She isn't interested in a relationship at all or dating at all since her divorce. And I can completely relate to that. When I got divorced, first of all, my marriage was a nightmare, okay? Hers wasn't that bad. But when I got divorced, I remember very soon after I got divorced, I don't even know if my divorce was final yet. One of my friends, Kara, who, may she rest in peace, she actually died not too long ago of breast cancer. She asked me, and she had a great marriage with her husband, and they were both hot and like, you know, like they just had this really great marriage. They had a bunch of kids, and she asked me, I remember exactly where we were and what we were doing. It was some kid's birthday party or something, and we were at the roller rink of all places. And she said, so when are you going to start dating again? And the idea of dating completely like, oh, no, thank you. I did not want to date again. I just couldn't imagine anything worse. And that's kind of how Anna feels in this book. I've done a good amount of dating. I didn't get married until I was 30. And so I had dated a lot and, you know, had some significant relationships in there too, but I hated dating. I absolutely hated like traditional dating, like going on dates with people you don't know and all of that, and being set up by people, which I was, going on blind dates, which I did, online dating, which I did, all of that. I hated it. I hated all of it. My most significant relationships, interestingly, were physical attraction or chemistry first, and then love grew from there. That's the ones that like stuck with me. That was not my husband, and that was not her husband. Her husband was what I always advised to my kids, but like I feel almost like I'm lying. I always tell them, be friends first. Meet someone and be friends first, and let your relationship grow from there, from friendship to, you know, romantic relationship. Think Chandler and Monica on Friends, okay? Like that. Ideally, that's great, right? So like that's the ideal. That's what we hope for, because you're your best friend with your spouse then if you end up getting married, or your partner if you're together. Isn't that great if that's what everybody gets, okay? But it doesn't always work out that way. Yeah, I can actually think of two friends. I can think of two friends from when I was younger. One that I still keep in touch with, one that I've lost touch with, and actually wrote a letter to not that long ago, and he didn't respond, and that kind of broke my heart a little bit, that I would have liked to have that happen. I would like to have had that friendship develop into something more, and it didn't. And they both ended up married to somebody else. Sorry, this is a super personal video. But anyway, she doesn't have any interest in dating. She works as a journalist. She's a writer and a journalist for Bath Living magazine in Bath, England. And one of her co-workers, who's also a journalist at the magazine, which she loves her job, is a guy named Will Havers. And he drives her nuts and bugs her. You find out later that the things he was doing that drove her nuts, or that was kind of like off-putting to her, was because he liked her. He wasn't doing anything mean or anything. He was trying to engage with her. He even, from his point of view, asked her out a couple of times. But she didn't realize that's what he was doing. The magazine is in trouble, as many print publications these days are, if they haven't stopped printing altogether. I used to get a lot of magazine subscriptions. The only magazine subscription I still have is Reader's Digest, because every other magazine that I used to read isn't in print anymore, except for maybe Real Simple. Do they still publish Real Simple? But that one I canceled my subscription. It's not because it went out of print, but every other magazine I used to get isn't in print anymore. So this was a very timely topic. It did have an online presence too, but they still published the magazine. And the boss, Jonathan, has to go into kind of a business arrangement with this guy, Crispin, who's trying to revive or save the magazine because it's in danger of shutting down completely. And one of the things that he wants to do to kind of bring in a younger audience and kind of spice it up a little bit, because he thinks it's too dated and too fuddy-duddy and stuff like this, is he gets Will and Anna, the two main characters, to do a dating challenge. So what it ends up being, they're both single. She's divorced, but he's just single. And there's some pretty particular reasons why he's single that you find out in the book. They set it up so that they're both going to date people at the same time, like the same weekends, different people. And they're going to have like a theme. I think what it was is that they were going to compare real life, like people you meet in the world dating with online dating. So Will was finding people online and Anna was having to go on dates with people she met in real life. And the way they end up doing it is she lets her kids pick the people. So her kids pick people for her to go on dates with. And she goes on this whole series of dates with all these different men. And I could totally relate to that too, because like I was like, oh my gosh, if my kids did that, I don't know what. I will say though, my younger kids are actually pretty good. They have pointed out at times, different times in my life, since my oldest has been gone, because my oldest is 28 years old. He's out of the house. He's lives on the East Coast and he's not around anymore. He's been gone for 10 years. But my younger two, because there's a gap between them, have kind of pointed out a few times to me like, Mom, I think that guy likes you, or he's looking at you. Or I remember this one time we were on a tour on a cruise ship, like an all access behind the scenes tour in the cruise ship. And there was this single gentleman on the tour and the kids were just absolutely convinced he was flirting with me. And they thought I was such an idiot because I wasn't paying attention. But I was paying attention to the tour, but I can see my kids doing something like that. Now, ironically, my oldest son actually specifically requested, and I think I've mentioned this before, he specifically requested that I not date after I got divorced because my marriage had been such a mess and a nightmare until my kids were all out of the house. Okay, which I have not. My youngest is 17 years old, and so that time is coming to a close. I can't imagine ever wanting to go on a date again. I don't know. So I can totally relate to how Anna feels, because I just didn't like dating. And like the way these dates go, some of them are actually nice. Some of them are funny. Some of them are like, whoa, what are you doing? Some have like mishaps and stuff. It's a wide variety of dates that she goes on. But she does not have any true chemistry or feel any kind of connection with any of them. She's very diplomatic about how she treats these men that she goes on these dates with. She's very fair, and she turns them into entertaining, funny, or insightful articles or whatever. And her and Will are matching up what their experiences were like and kind of like paralleling each other with the experience. She does a good job with it, and Crispin is very happy with how they go about this whole like experiment that they're doing with this dating thing. And it really does do great things for the magazine. And I'm not going to tell you what ends up happening with the magazine because that's way near the end of the book. But she realizes that true chemistry or true connection is actually very rare. And in reflecting on that, as I was reading this book, I realized that that is definitely true. And so when you find it, you really don't want to lose it. And there were a couple different times in the book where it had some really good moments where it felt like it really got me. She has a lot of trouble though too, also reconciling like, how do I date as a single mom? How do I manage all this with my kids? So that's an interesting aspect of the book too. Okay, no surprise. The one person she does end up having true chemistry and a real connection to is, in the enemies to lovers trope, Will Havers, her colleague at the magazine. And this is kind of a slow build. They don't really hate each other. They actually end up like finding the chemistry and the connection pretty quick. And then it's kind of a dance of like, can this work? This can't work. How do we make this work? It goes back and forth a couple times. It goes up and down. She suspects he's seeing someone else, and then like they have this whole conflict when they go to this book festival in Hay, and there's a flirtation that starts, and then he kind of disappears for a little bit. She doesn't know what's going on, and it goes back and forth and up and down. And then there's like, they're full out, like become lovers. And then I don't want to give away too much beyond that. But It was a very relatable plot to me, and it was very interesting and very well written, as Sophie Cousens does. I remember in that other book that I read, Just Haven't Met You Yet, which was a very different plot, totally different. I kind of had this feeling like, I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know what's going to happen. And I kind of had that with this too. But then like in the last, I would say third, like, oh my God, like it just, oh wow, like it just really, it was really good. I mean, I love the whole book actually. This one was really good all the way through. No section of it dragged. It was a good pace. There was plenty of stuff happening with Anna's life, these dates that she was going on, the magazine, her being a mom to her kids, dealing with her ex-husband, all of that. And then like this burgeoning relationship with Will and what's going to happen with that. There was a lot going on, but it wasn't like some overwhelming thing like with a zillion characters you can't keep straight or anything like that. So it was really well written. I really liked this one. So this is only the second Sophie Cousens book I've read so far, but I'm definitely going to take another look at her backlist and probably read some more just to see. But I'm going to say right now, I'll predict that it's going to be hard to top this one for me, because this one was so personally relatable to me. Just reading over even just the synopsis of the other books that she's written, I don't know if there's going to be another one that I'm going to be able to relate to, and that's going to hit me so hard like this one did. So this is probably going to be my favorite Sophie Cousens novel, at least to date. So I gave this book, Is She Really Going Out with Him by Sophie Cousens, 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend it, although I don't know if everybody will love it as much as I did, because some of the things about the story and the plot of this book and the character of Anna Appleby were especially relatable to me. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this book review. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.